Travis stared at the will, his hands trembling as he read the words that shattered everything he thought he knew. I forgive you, not because you earned it, but because love should never rot in silence. Across the table, Dana clutched a salon deed signed in her name, one she never asked for, from a man she'd refused to call family. And as the lawyer revealed Harold's final act, donating his body to the hospital that once saved their mother, the room fell into a silence so thick it was almost holy. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Harold Granger entered their lives not like a storm, but like a soft breeze, quiet, composed, with a slow smile that rarely broke through his deeply thoughtful eyes. He wasn't flashy, loud, or eager to win favor. He simply showed up, over and over again. Every ride to school, every dinner prepared with care, every quiet attempt to ask how their day had gone. But none of it mattered. Not to Travis, not to Dana. To them, Harold was an imposter, a stain on the memory of their late father. It didn't matter that he tried. What mattered was that he didn't fit. Not into their white middle-class life, not into the church community that eyed Michelle with suspicion the moment she started seeing a black man. Not into the image of fatherhood that their father, strict, stoic, and unyielding, had carved into their minds. Travis had once walked out of the house mid-dinner after Harold asked him about his college plans. "You don't get to ask me that," he snapped. "You're not my dad." Dana had watched in silence, but her disapproval had a sting of its own. Sharp sighs, eye rolls, and cold shoulders that grew colder with every passing week. Harold never raised his voice, never defended himself. He just kept showing up. And being rejected. Michelle's attempts to make peace only made things worse. She cried, pleaded, tried to show them how Harold helped pay for Travis's SAT tutoring, how he stayed up all night to drive Dana to her first cheerleading tournament. None of it mattered. Her children had already decided. Love could not cross that line. When Michelle died, suddenly, cruelly, in the middle of an ordinary Monday morning, Harold was the one who found her. He called 911. He rode in the ambulance. He held her hand as the paramedics failed to revive her. But when it came time to grieve, he wasn't allowed. Travis and Dana didn't call, didn't ask where she was buried. Instead, they organized a second memorial with their aunt, one where Harold wasn't even mentioned, and Harold, exhausted from years of trying to be seen, said nothing, didn't fight, didn't protest. He just stepped back, vanished. The silence that followed was comfortable for them, too comfortable, until the letter arrived, simple envelope, Charleston postmark, heavy with finality. Inside, only one line struck like lightning through their calm, curated lives. You are both named in the last will and testament of Mr. Harold Granger. And just like that, the man they thought they had buried in silence stood back up, holding their conscience in his hands. The scent of aged wood and polished leather filled the lawyer's office, the kind of place that felt more like a study in grief than a space for legal affairs. Travis fidgeted with the button on his sleeve. Dana kept her arms tightly crossed, gaze fixed on a brass lamp as if it might save her from whatever was about to unfold. Between them, a silence hung, not angry, not hostile, just hollow. Years had passed without speaking of Harold, and now, neither knew how to say his name aloud. Raymond Fields, the attorney Harold had trusted, sat with the weight of something unsaid. He wasn't theatrical, just precise. His voice held a reverence, not for drama, but for the dead. "Before we begin," he said gently, "your stepfather left something personal, something that requires your attention before we read the will." He unwrapped a small velvet bundle from his briefcase, a single brass key. No explanation, just an address. a Charleston storage facility tucked behind an old bakery near the coast. The next morning, the air was thick with humidity and dread. They approached the unit like trespassers. The lock clicked open with a groan, and the metal door rolled upward to reveal something that froze them where they stood. It wasn't junk, not forgotten furniture or old clothes. It was a shrine, an archive of unconditional love meticulously preserved. Stacks of binders lined wooden shelves, each one labeled with their names in Harold's careful handwriting. Travis, high school. Dana, art projects. Travis, football 2010. Dana, speech team. Inside, every page told a story. Report cards with notes from teachers Harold had circled in pen. Shows leadership potential. A photo of Dana holding a ribbon at a science fair. The corner read, "She was so proud that day." There were printed screenshots of Travis's college blog, with handwritten margins. "You've always been brave with your words." Dana opened a scrapbook titled Dana's First Drawing. Inside were torn construction paper sketches she hadn't seen since she was 8. Harold had written the date on each one, annotating them like priceless pieces of art. "Look at the detail in the wings," one note read beside a crayon dragonfly. Travis pulled out an envelope labeled Christmas Letters Never Sent. Inside were a dozen pages, each addressed to them on holidays they never shared. In one, Harold wrote, "Even if you never read this, I hope the world is kind to you." It was Dana who broke the silence. Her voice cracked, soft and soaked in disbelief. "Why? Would he keep all of this? After everything?" Travis didn't answer. He couldn't. He just stared at the wall of memories, his chest heavy with a grief he had no words for. They had erased Harold, but Harold had remembered everything. And in the far corner of the unit sat one final binder, larger, weathered. The label read, Michelle, and with it, the first tremor of a truth they were nowhere near prepared to face. Emotional stage, anger. The binder labeled Michelle felt heavier than the others, not in weight, but in presence. Its leather spine cracked as Travis opened it, as if the truth itself had been waiting too long to breathe. Inside were neatly organized folders, medical reports, appointment logs, and handwritten notes in both Harold's and Michelle's pen. A picture began to form, but it wasn't the one they had grown up believing. The first record they pulled was dated just 3 months after their father's funeral. Diagnosis: Stage 3, cervical carcinoma. The prognosis had been grim. Michelle, uninsured and overwhelmed, had apparently kept it from them. She'd been dying, alone, scared, and financially stranded. And Harold? He wasn't her lover then. He was just a volunteer at the church-run free clinic. But page after page, his involvement was clear. He didn't just offer support. He became her advocate. His handwritten schedule logged every chemo session, every follow-up, every call with a doctor. Left voicemail with Dr. Hargrove. Insurance still declined. Looking into trial options. One note read, "Sold car to help cover meds. Michelle doesn't know." Travis stopped breathing. Beside the records were videotapes, old mini-DVDs, the kind they hadn't seen in years. Dana pulled one from the sleeve labeled, "To My Children." She fumbled with the portable player stored beside it and hit play. Michelle appeared on screen, gaunt and tired, but smiling. "If you're watching this," she began, "it means I never got to explain. I didn't want you two to carry the burden I carried, so I let you believe I was strong alone. But I wasn't. Harold saved me, not just medically. He gave me back hope. He walked through hell with me when no one else could. I love him. I loved your father, but what Harold did, no one ever loved me like that." The silence afterward was suffocating. Dana closed the player and set it down gently. Her hands trembled. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes glistened with something raw. Guilt, rage, both. Travis stood still, one hand on the table, knuckles white. "He saved her," he whispered. "And we—" His voice cracked. "We treated him like a parasite." There were letters, too. One from Michelle to Harold. "If the kids never accept you, know that I do, with every piece of me. You gave me life again, and I would marry you 100 times even if it meant losing their love." They had turned their backs on the man who had saved their mother's life. They had built their anger around a lie of omission, never realizing the sacrifice behind their resentment. And now, he was dead. Too late to say thank you. Too late to say sorry. All that remained was the sickening burn of clarity. Emotional stage. Schadenfreude. The walls of Raymond Field's office felt even tighter than before, as if they, too, were bracing for the weight of what came next. Travis and Dana sat again in those stiff leather chairs, but this time their posture was different. Shoulders slumped, eyes dulled, each movement slowed by something heavier than grief. The will was bound in black leather. Simple, unadorned. Raymond opened it with care, then cleared his throat. Harold Granger left his assets with clarity and with intent. He began to read aloud. To Travis, the voice echoed softly through the quiet room. I leave the investment account I built for your startup. I watched your demo videos, every one. I believed in your ideas, even when you didn't. I saw the fire in you. I only wish I'd lived to see it light the world. Travis froze. His eyes widened, his jaw clenched. That account, 6 digits according to the balance slip attached, had sat untouched for years, quietly growing, waiting for a son who had never called. To Dana, Raymond continued, I leave the building deed and business license to Granger Glow, a beauty salon I purchased under your name 5 years ago. You always had your mother's hands. I saw how you styled her hair before church, how you lit up when you spoke about making others feel beautiful. The key is in the envelope. The rest is yours to build. Dana let out a choked sound, a cross between a laugh and a sob. She clutched the deed, staring at her name on the letterhead, her mother's hands, her stepfather's vision. And then came the final page, the one that didn't name assets, only truth. I forgive you both, it read. Not because you asked, not because you deserved it, but because if I held on to that pain, it would have poisoned the love I once felt, and I would rather leave this world with my love intact than my pride. Dana wept openly now. Her tears spilled onto the document, smudging the ink. Travis turned away, covering his mouth, shoulders shaking in silent collapse. But the will wasn't done. Lastly, Raymond said, voice trembling slightly, Mr. Granger donated his body to the same cancer research hospital that saved your mother. His final wish, let my last act be giving, even if my last years were spent unseen. A silence fell, but not the kind they'd known before, the cold, punishing silence of resentment. This was different. This was the silence of reckoning. Every cruel word, every door slammed, every year lost, it all rose now in judgment. And yet the man they rejected had chosen love over vengeance, legacy over ego. In that moment, justice was done, but not by retribution, by mercy. And somehow, that mercy cut deeper than any punishment ever could. They had cast him aside, and he had left them everything.